Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and wherever you may be, you're most welcome. Thank you for joining us on this session. Today we are going to talk about a 5-node saga, if you want, right? Where we started the first part of it back in early March, right? Where we talked about the 5-node switchless. Today we're going to look at part 2 of this session, all right? And we're going to take you through an exciting journey. A journey where we're going to dive in a lot tighter and deeper than what we did before. So instead of going through the full length of from 2 to 5, we're going to take you through from 2 to 3. But during that time, we're going to take you through a whole bunch of demos as well. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. All right. So how do you like this work from home screen? All right. I felt that this screen was particularly apt during this period, right, where in many countries where you are potentially in a lockdown mode, and of course in Malaysia we have recently come into what we call the recovery MCO, right, where there's a bit more flexibility. And of course you see the father and the son, if you want, having breakfast, right, and working at the same time. So truly this is a great opportunity for us to be sharing with you live, right, from the studio in Subang. All right, so let me just go back to where I'm supposed to be. All right, and of course, a quick introduction of myself for those of you who are new, all right, to me. My name's Noel, and I used to work for Microsoft Malaysia for 15 years. And since leaving about 8 years ago, I've been helping the Microsoft regional team across Asia, Pacific, and Japan. From Australia, New Zealand in the east, all the way to India in the west, and from Japan in the north, all the way to Indonesia in the south. Right? And during that time, I've been going out sharing about Azure Stack HCI, Windows Server, SQL Server, and primarily around the Microsoft OEM technologies that's been helping a lot of customers with great capabilities and yet saving them money. Right? So the last 5 years in doing this work, all right, I'm excited to be here to be able to share live in person with all of you. And obviously, together with me, all right, I have Linus, right, who is going to be doing a lot of the exciting demos for you. And Linus?
Hi.
All right, so Linus here has been with doing sessions like this with me for quite a number of years, and I'm so excited and happy to have him on board to show you through some of the exciting scenarios that we have packed in for you. Thank you, Linus.
Okay. Yeah.
See you back shortly.
Sure.
All right. So with that, all right, let's get cracking. All right. These are some of his details for you to go through when you get the deck. And for those of you who are interested to get more information and ask questions, please jump into the chat window. All right. We'd love to hear from you. Right. Thank you so much for being here with us. And of course, back in early March, as mentioned, we did this world first 5-node switchless event. All right. And in this event, we had a huge amount of equipment put together. In fact, the amount of equipment was staggering. All right. But to do that successfully, we needed to show a number of different aspects of the technology. So from one demo to another, right? And in this particular event, we're going to go through effectively 7 live demos with you. And with that, we believe that you get a depth that is beyond what we normally could get you within an hour. All right. So everything from walking through the hardware, if you want, at the beginning, and all the way to showing you how when devices, as time goes by, starts to age and start to break down, and of course even at the node level when things starts to break down as well. So it's important to note that we are not hiding any details from you. At the same time, we believe this is a great opportunity for you to be reskilling yourself, as what McKinsey says, all right, in this particular statement. To emerge stronger from COVID-19 crisis, companies should start reskilling their workers. And I'm glad those of you who are not even with companies, you are joining us on this session to reskill yourself. Welcome, folks. And those of you who are familiar with the IT trends that are happening around the world, you soon realize that the hyper-converged world is starting to merge into the cloud world with a very strong hybrid story. And this is what we are trying to bring you, if you want, in this particular event. But not forgetting, we have older than 10-year technology like Windows Server 208 R2, SQL Server 208 R2, and so forth, that are moving out from many organizations. In that vacuum that is being brought in, we believe this technology that bridges between the on-prem and cloud in the area of hybrid will bring you a lot of valuable solutions, even during this period with COVID-19. But I'm sure many of you know that with HCI, there are at least these 5 scenarios which are particularly pertinent. From branch office and edge to virtual desktops to SQL Server, especially in the most intense performance requirements, and of course the old trusted virtualization. Last but not least, the scale out storage. You soon realize that this particular solution that we're talking about fits every one of these scenarios in an amazing way. So starting with the branch office and edge, and of course working through even for the most intense requirement with SQL Server, and of course, not surprising, SQL Server being one of the best workload for HCI, holds some of the most valuable data. And this particular article from The Economist was highly relevant. As it says, the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data. So it's not surprising if you look at this particular title here, and what we are talking about being a hyper storage solution, being the best fundamental platform, if you want, for something like SQL, holds your most valuable resource, your data. So from a work from home perspective, I'm sure many of you are now so familiar with this new normal. Well, don't get so comfortable. We are really praying hard that we'll get out of it. But while we are in it, all right, I believe any solution that fits a business needs to be at least what I call minimalistic, which means highly cost effective, all right, and yet very pragmatic. So that said, these 3 forms the foundation of what we're going to show you very shortly. So starting with working from home, with the getting work done, right, we also need to think about how that users at home connects back all the way to the office, the server room, and data center. Last but not least, the productivity comes from the fact that the users get a chance to actually access the application in a secure way, and therefore allows the ability to work with the data, and even to the form of manipulating it, visualizing it, and making great business decisions with it. So these are the 3 key components, if you want, for an effective work from home solution. Users at home to equipment in the office that they need to access, whereby in a lockdown environment they can't get to the office because they're not allowed to travel out of their home to go to work, so they have to work from home. With the aid of cloud today and the great telecommunication connections that we're starting to get at home and all over the areas that we live and so forth, we now have the ability, if you want, to take our customers through at least these 7 scenarios. Obviously, working from home with Windows 10 and leveraging a technology from Microsoft called Autopilot to automatically configure those systems that they receive, right, at home, unboxing it, and be able to immediately log on to technologies like Azure Active Directory, and yet be able to go back to the office, leveraging highly cost-effective Microsoft OEM licensing in the machines that they buy, as well as the servers in the back end. And for the IT administrators, they get to use a easy-to-use, highly scalable, web-based application management platform with a wonderful, easy-to-use dashboard called Windows Admin Center. And of course, the out-of-the-box ability with Hyper-V and VR, as I call it, the spare tire scenario, right, with Hyper-V Replica, and of course, be able to remote into the servers, accessing their virtual desktops or even the application using a technology called Remote App, and of course, all that built on top of a highly scalable, high-performing, reliable, hyper-converged solution called Azure HCI. And all this built within the Windows Server 2019 technology. The best part about all of this is many of these technologies you already have in your organization. The Windows 10 with your laptop obviously is already capable of that. And on the server side, all right, you have all of that with Windows Server that you have bought probably in the last couple of years. So there's a lot of scenarios where you don't actually have to pay more money. Probably with the exception of the remote desktop services with some CALs and maybe even a licensing called VDA. But apart from that, you pretty much have already invested in whatever that's needed. So the good point here is it's minimalistic, it's cost effective, and it's highly pragmatic. So these are the key elements. So the next couple of minutes, I'm going to take you through if you want a whirlwind journey with Azure Stack HCI. So let's get cracking. So scenario number 7, as I shared, this gives you the ability to think about the Microsoft Hyper Storage, as I call it, right, with Azure Stack HCI. We start as small as a 2-node, and we can take you all the way to a 16-node scenario. So obviously, in this particular event, we are only showcasing taking you from 2 all the way to 5, but we're going to stop at 3 because in part 1, all right, we have actually taken you all the way. So today is a deep dive, if you want, from 2 to 3, right? And the important thing to also note is we have this built-in cache that leverages even technology like Intel Optane persistent memory. They give us the amazing performance that I'm going to show you very shortly. And of course, connecting between the servers, all right, what we call the east-west traffic, we leverage this technology called RDMA. And there's 2 standards that we support, IWAP and Rocky version 2. Regardless, you're going to get massive performance. And the architecture that we have with Azure Stack HCI is super amazing because we give you essentially 2 major areas, the converged design, whereby the servers, the network and storage are separated, which is something that has been very hugely popular over the last few years and still remain to be fairly popular. And of course, the technology called hyper-converged, where we merge the storage, the network into the servers. So giving you a nice package, if you want, of minimum 2 nodes all the way to 16 nodes. All right, so that's the converge and the hyper-converge, all capable from within the same set of technology. And the best part about all of this is in the hyper-converged design, we can even attach a JBOD to it. And this is probably one of those other sessions that we'll do in future. We'll take you through the amazing ability to expand the storage capacity without extending compute. And this will continue our journey of a minimalistic, if you want, pragmatic and cost-effective approach to how we can help customers have a highly performing, secure, reliable environment for their data. Last but not least, this solution comes with built-in HA and disaster readiness, giving you an amazing opportunity to benefit from multiple respects. All right, so if you think of it from the perspective of out-of-the-box high availability NDR, even down to the high performance and reliability, as mentioned earlier, and amazing cost savings to get you started. So you don't need to break the bank, as we say, right, in this scenario. And it's important to note that even from the core data center down to the edge, this technology is highly relevant. So it doesn't matter how big your environment is, you can start super duper small, like in the edge robo design, or even in the core data center approach, we have the ability to take you end to end. All right, and it's important to note that also from the emerging AI containerization of apps to the edge and so forth, we have those all built into the technology, not just on-premise, but the ability to hybridize the environment into Azure. So many of you who have started to look at Azure would have realized that Microsoft has an amazing lead in the area of data and AI. So converging the cloud and the on-prem, we have this amazing hybrid solution to help you deploy AI and containerized apps. Not forgetting also, we bring you amazing cost savings. The fact that all of this technology that we have spoken about so far comes in one specific SKU, Windows Server 2019 Data Center Edition, you can be assured that all this industry standard hardware that we're talking about, including the one that you see shortly, all right, from a 2-node all the way to a 16-node, will get you amazing capabilities at an amazing cost, the lowest probably in the industry today. So let's look at how we can take this to the next level. And of course, nothing beats having very simple operations. It's important to note that Windows Admin Center, that is potentially only a couple of years old, brings one of the most elegant browser-based management solutions to date. It's a HTML5 based solution, right? And it's no more than about 50 to 60 MB in size today, and it installs natively into a Windows 10 machine or even Windows Server 2019. And if that is yet to have made it to your environment, you can still put it into a 2016 server, giving you the ability to manage servers, manage clusters, even configure them, and turning on some of the new capabilities, and as well as managing the amazing hyper-converged management. And many of these things you're going to see in the next few minutes when we go into the demo. And of course, as mentioned, the hybrid capability, right? This is probably a story that's not going to end, right, in just a 60-minute session. In fact, this is probably part 2, part 3, part 4 of even just from a hybrid perspective. Everything from the Azure Cloud Witness, right, whereby today we can use a USB, and Linus will talk about that a little bit more. And of course, even be able to support Azure Backup, Azure Site Recovery, Azure Monitor, and we can even configure virtual machines with the Azure Virtual Network NIC, all right, for example, and so forth. So at the edge, so what can we do? Switchless back-to-back, and that's what we're going to show you from a 2 to a 3 and all the way to the 5 nodes. And of course, important to note that in the 2 node, we give you this capability called the nested resiliency. And there are 2 ways we do that. One is called nested two-way mirror, and the second, if you want, is called nested mirror accelerated parity. Together, we give you probably the best resiliency in the 2 node ever. So you could have a node fail, and yet the remaining node can have a disk failure or flash failure. So that's considered 2 fault domains if you want. So these capabilities are all built into a 2 node design, which customers have told Microsoft repeatedly that they need the highest level of resiliency, even though they're starting at a very, very basic 2 node scenario. And of course, the USB witness as mentioned. A simple USB thumb drive, no more than even 1 gig if you have a thumb drive of that size today, right, is all you need to provide a valuable witness service to keep your cluster healthy. And Linus will take you through the whole motion of what happens if you did lose this particular USB. Because someone in the data center decided they needed a USB, right, out of the blue, and guess what? They just saw one plugged into the back of your wireless router. And of course, the other aspect is the cost. Right? There's no such thing as great technology at no cost. But the best part is this technology comes at a very low cost and is highly affordable. So that's the key part, that this team can give you probably one of the lowest offering in the market today. Last but not least, on this slide, the simple design. And of course, when Linus walked you through the overview of the hardware and so forth, you soon realize that by simplifying the design, taking away the switches, we actually take away point of failure that many organizations that is trusting all their data in a toolbox and design like what we have, right, cannot afford, right? They cannot afford the downtime, they cannot afford the failure. So by taking away these failure points, we actually increase the reliability of the solution. So this is one of the performance benchmark that we did not so very long ago, right? In a 2 node design, using as low as 256 gig of RAM and a single Intel Optane NVMe card, we were able to churn through in excess of 500,000 IOPS. Now, where can you find performance like this in a 2 node design? In multiple runs, we consistently showed the ability to do more than 500. And of course, this is a performance benchmark that our Microsoft product team in Redmond did. In fact, this was done, if you want, in Ignite last year in November. And as you can see, with the same NVMe card that we use in our 2 node, they used it in 12 nodes and they were able to churn out 10.4 million IOPS. And if you took out that NVMe card and you retrofitted it with Intel Optane persistent memory, the numbers went up by at least another 25 to 30% to 13.7 million IOPS. This, we believe, is the fastest 12 node hyper-converged configuration money can buy today. Of course, what happens when you layer on top of that SQL Server 2019, the flagship RDBMS with amazing set of capabilities? You can see from a 2 node all the way to a 12 node, we get a very linear improvement in performance. At the highest, we had 55.7 million transactions per minute. How fast can you go? I believe even if you pack in Amazon with Alibaba.com, Taipao, eBay and all that, you will not hit 55.7 million transactions per minute, right? But what sort of hardware do you need to get there? As you can see from this configuration with 12 nodes of 2 CPU each, all right, mind you, is on the high side, you can say, with 28 cores, but not ridiculously high memory, 768 gig of RAM today for such amazing performance. This configuration is probably a drop in the ocean. For any other solution to get this performance, you probably need at least 3 to 5 times greater configuration. But that all said and done is just SQL Server 2019 running on top of Azure Stack HCI, which is the Microsoft flavor of HCI, to give you this amazing performance. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on stage Linus, who is going to take you through all the 7 demo scenarios that we have brought in for you. Right, over to you, Linus.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. Thank you. All right. Thank you for the message that actually you shared. Actually, this is second part of the program. Okay. Before I proceed further, we like to take a quick break. All right, and we'll come back to the show shortly. All right. Thank you. Okay. Welcome back. All right. So the next part of the program, we'll run through some demo to show you how all these Azure Stack HCI pieces put together. Before we go into the demo, I'd like to quickly run through with you the equipment that we use today. Thanks to Serverware, today we have a few nice equipment with us. We have 3 2U server put together to showcase the entire program we have for you today. Okay, so this is a Serverware ST2E X11DP series servers. This is exact model, how it looks like in the picture here. Let's go through the spec. Okay, this is a 2U server with 12+2 hot swap bay. Okay, you can see on the screen. And I like to highlight to you the key component which is highlighted in red color. So you look at the HBA, that is first of all, this is what control all the disks. In order for Azure Stack HCI to run properly, we must not use the RAID controller card. However, we need to use a HBA in order to control all the disks. The next part is the NVMe. In this particular configuration, we have 2 pieces of 375 GB Intel Optane. We use it as cache. This will bring the disk performance for all the read-write to your tip-top performance. This is exactly what we want to achieve here. And down there you can see storage network, the Mellanox 25 GB card. 25 GB card is the one that synchronizes between the servers to ensure all the storage are being updated across multiple servers, so that whatever you write on one server, it will be updated to the next server instantaneously. Last but not least is the operating system. In order to put the Azure Stack HCI into a full cluster function, you need to have Windows Server 2019 Data Center Edition. All right. So after this, we are going to go under the hood to take a look what is underneath the server for all the spec that we just talked about. Okay, come, let's go. Okay, so let's see what is under the hood. So you can see now this is a dual processor server configuration. Okay, so then I like to bring to your attention is the Intel Optane NVMe card. So this is how it looks like. This is the PCIe model. So 2 of them, every one provide you with 375 GB of storage, and this serves as a cache. Because these 2 devices run extremely fast, extremely low latency, that is where you want to use this to boost up your entire I/O performance. Other than these 2 cards, I also like to highlight to you is the HBA card. This HBA card will be the one that connecting to the storage backplane. So with all the storage backplane presenting the disk directly to the card, without doing further processing, the card will present the disk directly to Windows Server 2019 Data Center. So with this, the server will aggregate all the storage and form a full cluster functionality. The last but not least is this one, Mellanox 25 GB network card. This network card, we actually use it as a storage transport. Between servers, this is how we connect to each other. Later, we will look at the screen to show you the diagram, how they are back-to-back connected. So in this diagram, you can see between server 1 and server 2, there is an S1, which is a 25 GB Mellanox card is connecting to each other. This is a switchless connectivity because we do not connect this particular card to any switch. We are just connecting from server 1 to server 2 directly. This will form a direct connection between the two servers, and whatever you write on one server, it will be synchronized and updated directly to the next server. So in case of a situation, one of the server fail, the other server will be able to continue with the work from there. And these two servers is through a normal 1 gig or 10 gig connection back to your production switch or management LAN. All right, some people call it. This is where your user will connect to the server workload. So in this diagram, I also highlighted one particular PC, which is called WAC. It stands for Window Admin Center. Later, I will spend a little bit more time explaining about Window Admin Center. It is a graphical user interface, web browser based. It is a very easy to use user interface for you to manage the cluster as well as your Windows Server environment. Let's look into next, okay? We are going to dive right down into the demo to look at the performance of the system. All right, let's go back to the screen. If you follow me now, you will see at the top bar, the server name is server 1. So relate back to just now the server that you are seeing. All right, I have a server 1, which is getting ready with a script that we will actually run, and it will churn out a huge amount of workload, and you can see where the performance is coming from. Okay, so I'm going to run the script. Okay, while the script is starting on and warming up, all right, I'd like to bring you to another server, which is in server 2. In server 2, I've already preloaded a screen where the performance monitor is loaded on the screen, and you can observe from the screen and how high the figure can go. Right now, we are running on 2 nodes. You can see the performance on read-write on 2 nodes. Based on the numbers that just now Noel shared, we are able to shoot up the number to 550,000 IOPS, 560 to 570 IOPS. This is the kind of numbers we are looking at. This particular performance, if you are using a typical SAS hard disk technology, you will have to have thousands and thousands of SAS hard disks in order to achieve IOPS like this. But right now, today, we are only running at 2 nodes, 8 hard disks nearline SAS with Intel Optane storage system. And this set already gave you this kind of performance. Okay. I like to move on to the next part of the presentation. Let's continue on with the slide. So this is where you can see the number, okay? And on the right-hand side, at Window Admin Center, you can actually see the number in the graphical user interface. I will elaborate and share a little bit more about the graphic user interface, WAC, in a short while more as we elaborate further on the features in that area. Based on our tests, our internal tests, we have already done this back in March. You look at the numbers when we are starting from 2 nodes. Based on the read-write numbers, you can observe the bottom right table. When we have all read, that means 0 write ratio, we can see on 2 nodes, we are churning out about 550,000 IOPS. When we move up to 3 nodes, that is where the numbers jump. 4 nodes and subsequently 5 nodes, you actually can achieve 1 million over IOPS. Looking at the graph, you can see the performance actually is improving. And based on this environment, you are able to look at what type of performance requirement your organization have. And if you can start with 2 nodes and moving on to 3 nodes, 4 nodes to 5 nodes progressively depending on the growth of the organization. This is the key point about Azure Stack HCI. It grows with your business, it grows with your need. Okay, so done with now we're done with the performance test. All right, I'd like to quickly run through with you in the back end. What do you do in order to make all these pieces come together? All right, first of all, I'd like to touch on a small little topic about just now, already talked about the USB witness. USB witness, basically, it forms a quorum so that when you have 2 nodes, so at one point in time, one of the nodes will say, hey, I lost the other node. So right now, am I having the latest copy or the other server is having the latest copy? Okay, so this is what the USB witness is about. Let's jump right into the screen and look at what am I talking about. Okay, if you really look at the screen, on the server 1 again, you'll be able to follow me. I have one USB drive plugged into the server, okay? And I have shared this particular folder out to the network. And when it is shared and I configure when I configure the cluster, okay, and you will be able to see the witness, in fact, it is through the shared drive. So if we quickly jump over to the shared drive and see, you may ask, Linus, this shared drive, how much capacity do I need to prepare? How big? Is it a hard disk? Do I need to rate it? Okay, so let's take a look what is inside. It's only one folder with a GUID that denote what is the identity of your cluster. Then subsequently in the subfolder, you can only see 2 files. All right, and how big is a file? 1K. All right, so I think any USB that in the market you can find right now will be more than qualified to help you to be a witness. And in order to reconstruct, all right, if we destroy this, very quickly, if you go back to the script, you can just execute this particular script and it will reclaim the new USB drive and it become the new witness again. So it doesn't matter. It's very important when you see an error message from the cluster manager, okay? Then straight away from here, you will see the error messages. It gave you an indicator that the witness is requires some action to be taken on your side. Okay, so this is about the USB, right? So where am I now? Let's next move on to the next demo very quickly. And we will look at, let's see what will be the next part of the program is like. Okay, we will not go into detail. There is one more very important point. If let's say you are talking about the USB drive, you may not want to plug into the server. You can optionally plug it to your wireless router. You know, many organizations, especially in the robo setting, they may not invest in a huge facility in terms of server equipment and network equipment. If they are using this particular equipment, at the back of this router, you can see there's a USB drive for you to share media. You can plug in a USB drive, share the folder. This can also be your witness for the 2-node HCI. So on the right-hand side, you will see the diagram and how all these pieces are connected together. And this forms a full quorum. Okay, so from here, it's not configured. And after you run the command, and you'll be able to run through the steps. And there you go. And you have the witness there. Okay. All right, so I think it is time for us to look at how do we manage and administer the day-to-day thing. So that we will be able to see how easy for you to manage an Azure Stack HCI environment. Okay, let's quickly run through. Before I go into the screen, I'd like to share with you a little bit of the background about Windows Admin Center. Windows Admin Center is a single pane of glass. All right, it's a web-based application. It helps you to manage the environment. If you really look at it, it combines all the different tools that you have from Microsoft servers, you know, your control panel, your Windows your Windows administrator tools, your backup system, and so on and so forth, all into a single pane of glass. There is a few ways of deploying them. Okay, you can actually run on a local client, you can run it on a gateway server, you can do as a managed server. If your environment is, oh, nothing installed on my environment unless it is clustered, that's fine. All right, you can cluster the environment and provide a gateway for this particular Windows Admin Center. Once you build up and set up the Admin Center, this will be your database for all the equipment you have in your environment. Okay, so you can quickly search through it. Right now, the current version is still 1910. It is just about 50-60 meg. It takes less than a few minutes to get it up and running. Okay, so let's jump to the screen and look at what is Windows Admin Center is all about. Okay, so right now I'm going to switch you to another virtual machine. I actually have Windows Admin Center PC. Okay, this particular environment is what I've mentioned. Once you launch it, you'll be able to see all the machine you register in. This will be the very first machine that you will see as a gateway. It's part of the installation process. In order to add it, very easy. You just click Add button, move down. Right now, we want to add our server cluster. Okay. Then we'll put in our cluster name. The system will search through the DNS for your domain server. And straight away, you'll be able to identify that there are 2 nodes already inside this particular cluster. And when we click Add, voila, you see? So you'll be able to access to the cluster. You'll be able to access to the servers that make up the cluster. Let's jump right into the cluster and take a look at what are the features you will be able to get in Windows Admin Center. I'd like to bring to your attention is, first of all, is the volume. Right now, we have created a few volumes for our own testing and part of the demo presentation. We'll be able to go through that a short while more. Before I go into the volume, let's look at what are the disks that are available to us. In these 2 nodes, we have 8 disks each. Okay, so if let's say we quickly take a look at the list, all right, we are able to sort them by servers. Then you'll be able to see each server, you will have 1 pair of NVMe cache. This is the Intel Optane served as cache. We have 1 pair of SSD. All right, it's served for the higher speed performance tier for the storage. And then followed by capacity disk, which is a 2 terabyte hard disk. Combining all this, if you go back to the volume, okay, you can see that we have total of you go to the disk, you can see a total capacity of 14 terabyte. Okay, 14.6 terabyte of hard disk, spindle drive, and also 3.49 terabyte of SSD. Okay, the capacity for the cache is not counted because it is served as cache I/O only. So from here, you'll be able to jump right to inventory and look at the list of this. We will be using this particular screen from time to time so that you're able to see some of the functions that we have. Okay, I'd like to show you how easy it is to use Windows Admin Center. You look at, let's say you click virtual machine, go to inventory. These are the virtual machines that I've already configured. And this is part of the server fleet that we just now run the performance evaluation. Okay, let's quickly create a new server. For example, we like to create a new server. It's called Demo VM. We are going to use 2nd generation. It's going to be hosted in server 1 or server 2. It doesn't really matter at this point in time. But the system will recommend a default for you. We quickly browse through the cluster folder. Okay. And in this particular volume, this is a VM folder, and we are going to leave our new server here. Okay, and we click create. So up on top, you'll be able to see this machine is created. You click the link, this Windows Admin Center will bring you right into the VM for you. Hang on. Well, it didn't turn out, so we do refresh. There you go. So this particular machine is pre-configured with 2 VM. We haven't set up any memory. So we can actually jump right in. Come here. We can change the memory to 4 gig. Okay, we already have 2. Let's save. Okay. Save the setting. Okay. And we choose the disk. We can add a disk. Save the disk. Okay. Go to network. Right now it is not connected. We can actually choose whether we want to connect this particular server to the network. What are we going to do from here? Let's choose another disk. Okay. We can actually install and plug in one of the ISO as the installer drive. Let's look at it from here. Save the disk. Okay, then we can choose where do we want to boot from. Okay, let's boot from the Windows. Okay. Okay. So once it's done, we can actually click connect, start the server. We'll do a refresh date. So from here, we'll connect again. Because Windows Admin Center is going to connect, that's why there's an authentication. So you will see an authentication screen. So we get connected. We key in the password for administrator to connect to the remote PC. Oh, wrong password. Let's do it again. Your favorite password here. Okay, so as usual, you will see this virtual machine, even though it's on browser user interface. Okay, you can click Control, Alternate, Delete Controls button. Then it will go back in and trigger the installation process. From here, we choose our region format. Then we start the installation process from here. So this is how you create a VM from Windows Admin Center. It's just similar to how you install a normal VM in your cluster failover cluster manager. Okay, select the disk, and voila, this is how the installation starts. I'm sure this process is familiar to many of you. So we move on to look at other part of the cluster information. So you can go and take a look at the volume. You can check the inventory of the volume. When you move to inventory tab, you can see a list of volumes available, all we have created for the in the cluster. Other than volume, there are various type of volume. You can see various type of resiliency from here as well. Okay, next we are going to move on to the next part of our program. Okay, back to slide. We have seen how Windows Admin Center. We also have seen how to create a new VM using Windows Admin Center. Next, I'm going to show live migration. But before I go into that, I want to jump to the next demo first. Then in the following slide, in the following demo, I will share with you how do we do live migration and what does it mean by live migration. The next part of the demo, I'm going to quickly show you what is data deduplication and compression. This is one of the wonderful features. Without adding additional costs, you'll be able to increase the storage capacity for your server set. Let's look at what the system is about. Okay, we are back to the Windows Admin Center again. You look at Windows Admin Center, you'll be able to see all the volumes that I've created before that. For a 2 nodes Azure Stack HCI, you'll be able to share a new volume like this, two-way mirror. Okay, so if let's say I am here, I create a new volume. I'll create a new volume called a demo volume. So right now, because we only have 2 nodes, the only choice we have is two-way mirror for now. And we can have SSD size. Then we will have the hard disk size. So all in all, when we add up together, it is a 500 gig volume. Because it is a two-way mirror, after you add up because it's doubling it's half the actual capacity. So total size that we are going to use is 1 terabyte. However, the system capacity will give you 500 gig. So with this, you'll be able to create the volume. So once the volume is created, we can quickly do a refresh. There is a demo volume here. There is one particular feature I like to highlight here, which is this one, deduplication and compression. I just need to flip this on. You'll be able to start saving your disk. So first of all, you have to choose what is the deduplication mode that you want to have. Whether you want to have a Hyper-V or you want to have backup environment or default. So these three will affect the way the system schedule the deduplication process. The deduplication process, it is running in a batch mode. It doesn't happen immediately. In order to manage the performance, as and when you schedule it, it will run the deduplication as it goes. Right now, because we don't have any data, I'm going to bring you into one of the existing volume that I've created earlier to illustrate to you how deduplication can save you a lot of money. Okay? All right. So let's take a look at the existing volume. I have these 2 volumes with me right now. Let's say we speed up this particular open in new tab. Okay, let's put them side by side. Okay. Okay, let's go to the cluster. And on the left, I'm going to show you the volume without deduplication. On the right, I'm going to show you the screen with deduplication. Okay. So this is turned off. And you can see this is the amount of disk space that we use. Okay. And I actually have stored a similar amount of data in there. Okay. So the actual space is in use is only about 32 gig. If you really look at the amount space, you can see a compression ratio and deduplication ratio about 50%. Because I have created another new VM here, so therefore it takes up a little bit more space from here. But by looking at the switch here, you can see there is a saving of 53% in terms of your compression. You have this feature without adding a single cent because this is already part of the feature available in Windows Server 2019 Data Center Edition. By spending no extra money, by just clicking the switch, you'll be able to almost double your capacity within a few seconds time. Okay.
So this is again the next part of the demo. How do you find the information? I hope that everything is helpful for you. This is data deduplication and compression. So like just now I mentioned, when you set up a volume to become a deduplication volume, you'll be able to see that you need to choose the deduplication type. There are 3 types. Default, this is meant for general file server type of environment. If you have a heavily loaded VDI environment, you can actually set it to Hyper-V. That is where you need to quickly load and reload OS. You create multiple OS images. This particular schedule will optimize for VDI environment. The third option is backup. If this particular volume is meant for you to be a target storage system for your backup system, the example, for example, is Windows Data Protection Manager, you can actually set this up as backup. So with this, your schedule of running the deduplication will be in a longer interval, so it won't be so aggressive, and it will taking less performance toll in the existing 2-node environment. On the right-hand side, it's very important because deduplication is part of the feature. You don't need to pay for it. However, you need to be aware some of the system requirement. There will be additional RAM requirement. This is recommended per terabyte of data. You need to budget at least 1 gigabyte of RAM for the system to run the deduplication process and so on and so forth. If you want further information, down there is a link. Okay, you can access to this link. You'll be able to access to the information to dive into the area. Okay, so we have seen the volume. We have seen how easy it is Windows Admin Center in managing your everyday work. As part of the support team, some of the situation, it is just unavoidable. Okay, what if you have a drive failure? So what do you do? So how can Windows Admin Center tell you, and how does Azure Stack HCI behave when you have a disk failure? Okay, so let's look into some of the environment. So some of the feature here, we look at it. In 2-node environment, you can see a 2-way mirror. So when 2-way mirror, when it runs, you will have data copy from one server to another server. On the screen, you'll be able to see that it is 2 different scenarios. Scenario number 1 and scenario number 2. Scenario number 1 is one of the disks in server 1 failed, and server 2 is fully intact. In this environment, there will be no downtime. On the other hand, scenario number 2, you have the entire server number 2 goes down. And with the server 1 fully intact, your data and workload will fully intact. So this is the environment we are looking at in 2 nodes environment. So you ask me, Linus, how about if let's say there is a drive on a running server while the other server is failed? All right. So if let's say we look at this, using 2-way mirror, if you have another hard disk fail while the other server is taken down for maintenance purposes, then your workload will go offline. This is scenario number 3. And scenario number 4, all right, one disk on one server and the other disk on the other server fail. This will also bring the workload offline. So in order to overcome this, Windows Server Azure Stack HCI have nested resiliency, which is a 2-way mirror. It is part of a mirror-in-mirror environment. So it's nested 2-way mirror. You can see the data is actually created a duplicate copy per server basis. And on top of that, that duplicate copy is replicated to another server. So all in all, you will have 4 copies of your data. So that will also bring your usable space to 25%. Okay? So if this is the environment you need, okay, you will have to, it's actually suitable to some of the environment. If you need a little bit more capacity in terms of at the same set of feature, you can actually consider the nested parity. With this environment, you can actually see there are two tiers of redundancy. The first tier, you will have a parity. Parity, if you refer back to hardware RAID environment, you are actually talking about RAID 5. You have 4 data set, then it actually separated into a parity bit. From there, you actually take part of the capacity to store the parity environment. On top of that, we duplicate the entire data set into the following server. Then with this, you have 2 tiers of copies. With this technology, you are able to use up to about 40% of your total raw capacity. This will be very, very reasonable to most of the environment, which is critical. At the same time, you need the performance of the HCI environment. Okay. Before we go into 2-node to 3-node, I'd like to quickly do a demo for you and show you how this thing about. Okay, so we are going to go here and get ready the environment. And we don't need this anymore. Let's move this to a full screen. Quickly take a look at the amount of disks that we have. Okay, so this is the list of disks that we have. So right now, I'm going to come over to the server. You may be able to see the server is running live. Okay, I can put my mic nearer. You can hear the fan noise here. All right. So imagine if this is one of the machines that actually go down, one of the hard disks. If I pull it out, okay. So simulating that is a disk failure. Okay. So right now, let's quickly run to the screen and look at what is shown on the screen. So this is a list of hard disks. Okay, I need to run a refresh. Oh, one of the disks is lost. If you really look at what we have, all right, the system at the volume level, it says need repair, but the status is still green. The system is still online. There is no interruption to the environment. So after this, you actually be able to bring down the new replacement hard disk and come back in. All right. So imagine this is a replacement hard disk. You plug back in. Okay. That's all the technician will have to do. And you go back to Windows Admin Center. Go to the drives. We do a quick refresh. Okay. Let's look at this and switch the screen again. Come back in. Voila. So the disk is back. We are able to quickly go into if let's say you are one of the server administrator, most likely you want to know what is the status of the recovery right now. Okay, you can come here, type a simple command. Oops, looks like the job has been repaired. I didn't have enough chance to show you the system is in repair. Don't worry, in the next part of the program, we are going to simulate some other scenario. We will come right back in here so that we'll show you exactly what was the recovery process looks like. Okay? Okay, so the recovery is really that fast. Okay, another simulation that we are going to show is later. We are going to do cache failure. But before we do cache failure, I'd like to run through with you the process of upgrading 2 nodes to 3 nodes. Let's go back to the slide, a quick one. Okay, right. So you have seen how the nested parity works, and you can see actually how all this disk failure is being recovered. I'd like to show you what if suddenly your environment have outgrown the server spec that you have put together. Maybe the organization is going through acquisition and merger, and right now you'll find that 2 nodes is no longer enough for you. You would like to quickly run into the system and purchase another set of server and upgrade them. You remember all these connectivity? This is the S2 cable, and from the S2 cable, you'll be able to connect server 1 and server 2, and server 1 to server 3, and server 2 to server 3. You look at the next slide, you actually can see, okay, there are some overlapping here. Okay, the back-end connectivity you can see is between S1, S2, and S3. This configuration is using a switchless environment. If you look at the switchless environment, you have S1 connecting server 1 to server 2. Okay, you have S2 connecting to server 1 to server 3. And you have S3, which is a storage network connection between server 2 and server 3. With this environment, with this connectivity, you'll be able to bring your 2 nodes to 3 nodes environment. Down there, I have some data to show you the IP addresses that we will configure and so on. Okay, I will not bring it into. Let's add and show you how to put all these pieces together. Okay, so looking at this cable, all right, I'm going to show you how we plug in the cable, we enable the connection, then we will add in a new server right from there. Okay, all right, so there is a port. You have to make sure that you connect the right port based on the diagram just now we illustrated. And the bottom one is server 3, and with this connection in, we just need to go back into the server configurator, cluster manager, and from the cluster manager, we're able to see the configuration from there. Okay, let me minimize the PowerShell command line. Okay, first of all, let me quickly run through with you the network configuration. Go to the network, go to the server setting. I have my S2 disabled. Once I plug in the cable, what we do is we will enable this link. So once the link is enabled, and let's take a look at the server 2. Server 2. All right, let's enable S3, which is connecting between server 2 and server 3. So with these two enabled, let's quickly go to server 3. Do the same thing. So all this is up. So based on just now the table, I've already pre-configured the IP address for all of them. I'm going to show you how they are added into the cluster. First, we switch to Cluster Manager. Once you're in the Cluster Manager, come to the nodes. Right now, we only have server 1 and server 2 as part of the node. Go to Add Node. Go through the welcome screen. Then, have to make sure that your new nodes is added to the domain controller. Is retrieved. Is recognized by the domain. Just need to pick up. Are you sure this is the new node you want to add? New server to add as a new node? And you click next. The server right now is being configured as part of the cluster. If you have observed while the server is running, I'd like to show you the Windows Admin Center. Okay, so right now, Windows Admin Center, we have 16 drives. Okay, 16 drives. I'd like to run a reload. And now we have 24 drives. If you look at the inventory, the new drives that from the new server are all listed part of the inventory. You look through at server 3 here. The only thing you have to be aware is whatever hard disk capacity you have in your existing node, the new nodes have to match exactly same tier and exactly same number of units. Okay, so with this new option, we have a new member in the cluster. Of course, you can do a lot more things. First of all, I'd like to highlight to you, if you come to the cluster volume, if you create a new volume, oh, this is still new two-way. Okay, so what I'll do is, I'm going to close this window. Okay, let's relaunch Windows Admin Center again. Go back to the cluster. Okay, come here, create a new volume. Oops. Let's quickly look at another server that we have. Let me see. Volume. Okay. Oops. Let me run through the cleanup again. I think this could be due to the cache is running. Oh, we have a situation here. Let's take a look. Okay, just give me a moment. Let's finish this screen. A node is added. There's no change in the row. Okay, because server 3, we haven't moved any row to server 3 yet. And let's come back to it in a moment. We can take a look at this server. So one of the things is right now, for example, if let's say I have this particular new volume, new VM that we like to move on to the new server, we are able to use this utility and do a live. We can select a node. Okay, so because this is right now currently running on server 2, we can actually pick to let it run in server 3. So then the system is live migrating to server 3. This is using Windows failover cluster manager. If we switch over to Windows Admin Center, so if you go to the virtual machine, you can see a list of virtual machine here. So these are the virtual machines that you're running. So the demo VM just now I was just created 20 minutes ago. You can actually run over here. Okay, it is running on server 1. Okay, it's running on server 1. You can also get connection from here. Let's run from here, the demo. Wait, there's a line. We can actually move this. So from server 1, we can actually live migrate, move it to server 2. Oh, hang on. Okay. Let's move on and look at the volume. So from now on, let the system stable down. Once the new node is added, we can actually look at the volume. Aha! So the new 3-node option is now available. So you can actually create a 3-way mirror volume by selecting this option, and this is available when you have 3 nodes added to your environment. And you can create a volume. So with this, your newly added servers is already ready to provision. We have already done adding a new node, and within a few minutes, we are able to live migrate from one of the VM from an existing server to the new server. And also at the same time, we are able to create a new volume based on a 3-way mirror, which is a feature is only available once you have the 3rd node added to your cluster set. All right, so then with this, you actually have a pretty robust environment, and the system will be able to load balance itself. So if let's say you like to bring one of the server down for maintenance, okay, in order to simulate that, what I'm going to do is, from this particular server, I'm going to open up our file server, our file server 1. I have a share folder here, and I have a little bit of a workload. So let's look at how much I have a C drive here. Okay. So let me make a copy of some files over here. Let's look at how much file do we have. Okay, it's 27 gig. Okay. So let's look at some copy of a file, and we'll drag it over here. So mind you, right now, we are using a F1 server. We quickly switch over to the server, Windows Admin Center. With the server, this is the server we are moving from. So right now, I'm going to move this server to another node. For example, server 3. If we quickly go back into the screen, and right now, it is still copying 30%. If we come back into the Windows Admin Center, we do a quick server refresh. So right now, server, it is running at server 2 is in progress. It is still copying here. It's 40% now. Let's look at what is behind the scene. Okay, it is still doing live migration. 50%, 67%. Okay, so it's done. Migrated to server 3. And the file copy is still ongoing without any interruption. So this is the environment you're talking about when you need to bring one server down for maintenance purposes. The workload, the user who is using the file sharing server, the SQL servers, they actually do not know. The maintenance team is actually actively taking care of the backend environment. Okay. So while waiting for the server to finish the job, okay, I'd like to quickly bring you back to the slide. Okay, on the slide just now, we already gone through a quick recap. The demo we did, we actually added a new node to the cluster. In a few minutes, we are able to provision workload to the new server already. Then at the same time, once the server stabilized environment, and you can see within few minutes, you also will be able to see the new volume option that make available to this particular new set of cluster. In order to illustrate the next set of demo, I'd like to show you what if you have a cache drive failure? So Azure Stack HCI basically have a few interesting relationship between the cache as well as the storage capacity. When we actually go on a three-way mirror, you are able to afford 2 server fail, all right, but the other one actually will still be running when you have a three-way mirror. But in the next set of demo, we are going to quickly run through, for example, if let's say we are simulating the cache drive failure. Okay, let's move on to this particular cache drive. Okay. So right now I have this particular server is part of the server set. When I have server 1 and server 2 actively running the environment, and I have server 3 is running as well. So I'm going to simulate by disabling the particular cache drive. Okay. So if let's say I have all these servers running, when I disable this particular server, okay, let me refresh this. Hang on, not this one. Just give me a moment, let the server do its work. So we are going to this drive. Oops. Okay, we are going to this drive. And you can see all the drives available here. Okay. So this is the Intel Optane storage. Right now, the servers are all running. And I am going to turn off one of the device from Device Manager simulating a drive component failure. So this is the server that is running on server 1, which is demo VM, and all the server label server 1. We come here and we disable the device. You sure you want to disable? Before I click yes, let's quickly also take a look at the Windows Admin Center, see what are the current status of all the drives. So all drives are healthy right now. Okay. So I go back to server 1 and click disable. Okay. Proceed to disable. So looking at the icon, this particular volume is being disabled. I quickly switch over to the Windows Admin Center. In normal case, of course, you don't need to click this. Usually it is due to the alert for the monitoring team. And you can start seeing that in the summary page, it starts to show there are 4 critical items we have to look at. So as an admin, you come in, you can actually see this is already lost connection. This is the cache drive. And interestingly, I only disable 1 cache drive, and we have 3 additional capacity disks also lost connection. Because in Azure Stack HCI, there is a relationship between the cache disk as well as the capacity disk. They are paired together in order to optimize the performance of the capacity disk. So therefore, as soon as the cache disk is become not available, the capacity disk will also become not available at the same time. However, if we look at the VM, all the workloads are still running like normal. There is no interruption to the operation at all. So in order to remediate this, you may like to shut down the server, replace the equipment, and so on and so forth. If let's say we do that, we come back here, Before we do a restart, I like to run through a command with you. This is where we actually have a get job. You can actually see there are some of the volume need repairs, even though it is already still running. Okay, then some of the volume will require repair. Let's go back here to the device manager. We enable back this particular volume. Let's take a look at what is the status in our Windows Admin Center. All right. So as you can see, all the disks becoming online again. If we quickly go down to the server, if you're one of the admin, server admin, you will come here, take a look at the command again. All right. So you can see total byte process is 2 GB in total. Right now it is processing the first 512 MB of it. Okay. So in fact, if you really look at it, pretty soon all the repair will get done quickly. Okay. So all these are done in the background without the administrator need to do anything. The very important thing is to look at the status of the environment, making sure that the workload didn't go down, and at the same time, monitoring the status of repair whenever the system is go into the maintenance mode. Okay. So as soon as some of the job is done here, okay, you can actually leave the system and let it run. Another screen that I like to bring to your attention is if you really look at the Windows Admin Center, you are looking at the disk screen and also the volume screen. You can actually see on top of that, there is a task already actively running. It is rebalancing the storage pool. Because we have added a new node to the cluster, the server, the cluster environment, it will actually rebalance all the workload. While doing that, we have failure, we have maintenance, all these things happen without interruption. And you can see based on the status you have on the VM, they are all in a running state without any issue. Okay, so let's go back to a slide, quick one. Okay, so we already done the reload of this one. Okay, yeah, we already done with the cache failure. Okay. So if let's say you have a planned maintenance service, okay, let's go right down into the next set of demo. We have a planned maintenance. So what you do is you actually go back. Okay. All right, we take a break and we come right back.
Okay, next part of the program, we are going to take a look at, we simulate some node failure. When we have 3 servers, okay, the reason we put it all together in the cluster mode so that during operation, there is one of the node failure, the rest of the workload must be able to continue. Okay, so now this part of the program, we are going to simulate a node failure. Before we start to pull out power and so on, let's show you what I have prepared, some workload, so that we can see how the workload take the failure, right? Okay, now you see, now we have this screen in front of us. Okay. Let's go to the Dedupe server. This is one of the virtual server hosted in virtual server 3. You can see, all right. This we have one node which is on server 3. It is running the file server 1. And we have another virtual server VM file server dedupe is also running on server 3. So since these two servers are running on server 3, we are going to put some workload, simulate there are some work is going on. When we come in here, put in our favorite password. So on this particular screen, I actually show you a side-by-side file explorer. On this side, this is the server 3 component. This is the dedupe folder, dedupe on the dedupe server. And on this side, we are going to go to the file server, fs1. Okay, that is the share folder here. We are going to simulate someone copying some file or doing some work. All right, this is what we are going to see in a normal workload. While the system is running the copy for the 20 over gig of files, all right, let's pull out the power and see what is happening. Okay, we are going to look at the front panel of the server first. Okay, let's take a look at the front panel. You can see now all 3 servers. Okay, this is a LED indicator to show that all 3 servers are powered. So they are all 3 running. I'm going to go to the back of the server and pull out the power to simulate a system failure. Okay, so let me do the first one. So you can hear the buzzer. All right, the server is warning that it loses one of the power. And now I'm going to pull out another power. There you go. So the buzzer also gone. So now if we move back to the front panel, and you can see that the server right now has no more power. Come, let's go to the screen. The workload is now stuck because this is an unplanned failure. So if we really look at it, so this server looks like it is not responding. So if we minimize this VM, which is hosted on server 3, and we really look at it, the status already say is unmonitored because the VM no longer responding to the console. Let's have a quick refresh to the system. Okay, the system is refreshing and find out what exactly is the state of the system. If we look at the Windows Admin Center, let's look at what is being reported here. On Windows Admin Center, in the drive summary page, total we have 24 drives, and now you can see 8 of the drive is in a critical condition. If I go into the inventory and take a look, we can see some of the drive which is hosted on server 3 is lost. You see? Okay, so if we do sorting by server, okay, so all the server 3 are lost. But if we go to the volumes and we look at the volumes, they are still in green. That means they are still functioning. However, there is a status to say need repair. The system already know we have some serious condition about all the disk volume. However, from the workload perspective, they are still running. Let's take a look at the inventory. So server 3 is down. Look at the virtual machine. All the virtual machines still running. Let's do a refresh. All right, the server 3 is still registered. We go back to our failover cluster manager. Look at what is the situation here. It has become unmonitored. If I go into the workload, all right, it is still not responding. While waiting for the system to update the status, We are going to take a quick break, let the system recover. In the normal circumstances, this is where the data center administrator will get alert that one of the physical server is in a critical condition. That is where the operation side, there will be some people will call the call center to find out what is the status of the server, why their work is being interrupted. This is the point where the application redundancy will come in. When you have one physical host hosting one part of the application level redundancy, the application will switch the workload to another level as well. But however, from the infrastructure perspective, when we look at the server 3, it is right now, it is still as an unmonitored situation. Give the system a minute or two, we will be able to see the status being refreshed. Then the server will be rehosted, the VM will be rehosted into another server. So let's take a quick break and we will come back at how the system responds. Okay? All right.
I think majority of the customers who have adopted Azure Stack HCI, which used to be called S2D, came from the areas of server consolidation, DDI, those who are migrating off the really old SQL Server like 208 and 28.2 to the latest SQL 2019, right, which needed a lot of IOPS, right, especially for the areas of OLTP or ETL or even business intelligence and so forth. But not forgetting that some customers are also going down the path of private cloud and hybrid cloud. Right? With that, I think many customers in those areas have started adopting, if you want, Azure Stack HCI in a big way. Whenever Intel released some of their latest and greatest technology like Intel Optane, NVMe and the system memory, Microsoft was able to tap on those technologies to allow it to outperform, right, its closest rivals, right, to the point where in a 12-node configuration we are able to achieve 13.79 million IOPS. Right? There's no other solution today that can come anywhere close. So we also believe that Azure Stack HCI is probably one of the most affordable HCI solutions in the marketplace today. Right? And the way we have done it is through ensuring that the capability comes together with Data Center Edition. Right? And Data Center Edition comes with one very significant, if you want, line item. The customer gets to deploy as many virtual machines as they want running Windows 7. So essentially they could start small and grow as big as they want without additional cost. Right? So we believe that thinking ahead for the customer is an important part of our HCI solution.
Okay, so after a minute or two, because this is what we have configured a server to give the failed node 2 minutes so that before the system start to take over in another server, all these are configurable parameter. So once 2 minutes is up, the system will straight away take over by, the VM will be taken over by another physical server. Let's look at the console right now. So if we go back to failover manager, you can see file server 1 and file server 2 is now running. It is now running on server 2. If we look at the nodes, so you can see server 1 and server 2 is running and server 3 is down. If we go back to the workload, which is where I was connected just now, and now the system will try to connect back to this particular server 1 dedupe server name. Okay, so let the system connect. All right, if it doesn't, so what we'll do is we will just connect it again. All right, give it a moment. The server is still trying to rebalance all the back-end processing because one of the server have failed. While we wait for the server to get connected, I can run through with you what is the status that we have on the Windows Admin Center. On Windows Admin Center, right now you also can see that file server 1 and file server 1 dedupe is also now running on server 2. Out of all the servers, okay, the system also reflect, Windows Admin Center also reflect that the server 3 is down. One of the server is under the critical condition, and on here the alert, so there is a server is not reachable. Okay, let's go back to the connection. All right, so the system are able to connect to the dedupe server now. Let's log in. Okay, so in a quick moment, the server will report that it was abnormally shut down, but however, it is recovered automatically. Whatever workload was done halfway, okay, if it is a critical function, this file is done partially, okay. You are able to see that we can continue the work from here. If let's say this is file level FS1, okay, you can continue to make your file copy from here. If let's say this is an application, the application level redundancy will kick in at this point in time. Once the server is restarted, it will be available to the application again, and then the workload will resume back to normal. So this is how the operation will resume. So at this point in time, if you imagine in the real world scenario, the operation team will go in and investigate and recover server 3 from here.
We have done the demo already. Okay, so now we just like to do a quick wrap up. Before I invite Noel back to stage again, I'd like to have a quick introduction to the environment. The environment was set up, sponsored by Serverware. The equipment, the servers, and also this particular studio. I'd like to have a special thank to Serverware team. The server environment is also set up by a Kita community. Kita is an IT community that actually come together to support activity like this. If you'd like to find out more about Kita community, feel free to scan the code and visit us. If you need more information, feel free to leave your information in the form on the website. Okay, so I'd like to invite Noel to do a closing as well. Noel, come.
Thank you, Linus. I hope all of you enjoyed the session. Right, it's been amazing. All right, working with him and the team from Serverware, right, to bring together this particular what I call webinar. All right, and I hope all of you learned what you came for. All right, and I'm sure there will be more questions that you may have for us. All right, so post them onto the chat. Of course, we look forward to doing subsequent sessions for you. All right, and basically that's it from me. All right, back to you guys. Thank you.
Okay, so I think with this, we like to close our session today. Do follow Serverware website, and we'll continue to post the next event. Feel free to join us again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.